Imagine a world 70 million years ago, in the midst of the Cretaceous period. Instead of the Europe we know today, there was a vast archipelago. Yes, Europe at that time was a collection of islands formed by tectonic processes. There were islands of different sizes, and each had its own unique ecosystem. But among this diversity, one place stood out dramatically. Hatsuk was an isolated land, literally lost in the middle of the ocean. The nearest landmass was about 200 kilometers away from Hatsuk's shores, and it's safe to say that even Dracula would hesitate to venture here. The weather was different too. Today, Romania has a temperate continental climate with familiar seasons, dry summers, then autumn, followed by snowy winters. But 70 million years ago, things were quite different. Back then, it was tropical, and this creates a paradox in and of itself. Many scientists believe the local climate was subtropical, which also implied having wet and dry seasons. Yet, despite this, much of Hatsuk's fauna and flora, based on fossil evidence, was distinctly tropical. How is this possible? The answer lies in the island's abundant rivers and lakes, which provided a consistent water supply to the vegetation throughout the year. Thus, tropical plants thrived in comfortable conditions. At first glance, Hatsuk might have seemed like a paradise. Dense forests among the rivers, humid air, and fertile soil enriched by volcanic activity. But that's only at first glance. In reality, Hatsuk was the perfect laboratory for evolutionary experiments, and their primary factor was isolation. It was this isolation that played a key role in the island's history. Not only did it restrict species migration, but it also drastically altered their sizes. Scientists even coined a specific term for this phenomenon, the island rule. This principle explains how isolated ecosystems transform their inhabitants. Today, we see similar examples on Madagascar, home to dwarf lemurs, or on the Channel Islands off the California coast, where dwarf foxes live. And 10,000 years ago, islands in the Mediterranean were home to dwarf elephants and hippopotamuses. But how exactly does the island rule work? It's all about balance. Limited resources force animals to adapt. Being large becomes simply unprofitable. The larger the body, the more food it needs. Thus, those who can manage with less energy survive. Over generations, animals on many islands shrink, becoming smaller to survive. Even the monstrous creatures we often imagine as giants shrank into pale shadows of their former selves on Hatsuk. But this phenomenon has a flip side. As they become smaller, they turn into easy prey for other animals, and predators in turn grow larger. Let's take a closer look at this paradise and get to know its inhabitants more closely. Take a closer look. There, emerging from the marshy mire, someone is watching us intently. It's Allodoposicus. Looks like a crocodile, doesn't it? But compared to some modern crocodiles, this predator was dwarfed, measuring only about 3 meters long. You might chuckle at the word dwarf. Sure, one of the predators of Hatsuk was smaller than today's crocodilians, but size isn't everything. Allodoposicus was a survival expert, with a skill set that more than made up for its modest dimensions. Take a look at its skull. Short but powerful, perfectly designed for snapping shut on prey and holding it tight. Special sinuses in the skull enhanced its ability to pick up sounds on land. Its strong forelimbs made it far more agile than its modern crocodilian relatives. That's right, this dwarf could move swiftly, not only in water, but also on land, remaining a dangerous predator. But more often than not, it opted for a different hunting strategy. It was simple, yet lethally effective. While waiting in the water, Allodoposicus patiently bided its time until an unsuspecting prey came close. It hunted just about anything: birds, small dinosaurs, and even the young of larger animals. One lightning-fast lunge, and the prey would vanish in its powerful jaws. Thanks to this ambush hunting style, Allodoposicus was one of Hatsuk's top predators. But even this one had competitors. A shadow flickers among the trees. Is it a bird? Well, it's definitely something feathered. This is Elopteryx, one of the most mysterious creatures of the late Cretaceous. However, depending on which scientist you ask, they might call it Heptasteornis instead. There's still no consensus on the matter. The remains of Elopteryx were so fragmentary that scientists initially mistook it for a prehistoric owl. That's right, the animal's long, thin bones resembled the skeleton of an ancient bird. However, the shape of its femur and foot suggested it was, in fact, a dinosaur. Further studies revealed that Elopteryx was a small theropod, a type of bipedal dinosaur. Some researchers speculate it might have been related to Alvarezsaurids, a group of small predators known for their unique limb structure. Although scientists have not been able to fully reconstruct what Elopteryx looked like, they do have some theories. Elopteryx was a small predator, about 1.5 to 2 meters long, and weighed a modest 30 kilograms. Indeed, its small size gave it a distinct advantage in speed and agility, and not just on land. Researchers suggest that this creature had powerful hind legs with claws, which were likely designed for climbing. Some findings, including its unusual foot structure, strongly indicate that Elopteryx was adapted to living in trees. Its size allowed it to reach the canopies, giving it a huge advantage over other predators. Its diet was likely diverse, consisting of small animals, possibly insects, lizards, or even hatchlings of other dinosaurs. It probably hunted very cautiously, waiting for the perfect moment for a precise lightning speed attack. And there were good reasons for such caution, because the island was home to dragons. However, 70 million years ago, dragons looked very different from what you might imagine. Meet Balor-Bondoc, or the stocky dragon. It could reach up to 2 meters in length and weighed about 15 kilograms, roughly the size of a small dog. And this is supposed to be one of Hatsuk's fearsome predators? The surprising part is, we don't actually know if Balor-Bondoc was a predator. At first glance, everything is clear. Its two large sickle-shaped claws on its hind legs clearly suggest a tool for ripping prey apart. Look at its sturdy legs, perfect for pursuit. Indeed, this species could easily compete with Elopteryx for prey. But here's where the mystery begins. The issue lies in this dinosaur's unique anatomy. For instance, the third toe on its feet was non-functional, and the bones in its legs were almost fused, similar to what we see in modern flightless birds like cassowaries or ostriches. Moreover, Balor-Bondoc had a much wider pelvis than typical predators. This led to an unexpected hypothesis. Balor-Bondoc may have been an omnivore, eating both animals and plants. Its large pelvis suggests a relatively large stomach and intestines, the kind needed to digest a plant-heavy diet. And the strong legs may not have been for swift attacks, but for supporting its body weight. As for the claws, they might not have been for slashing, but rather for holding on to prey, similar to how modern birds of prey like eagles pin down their victims by stomping them into the ground. Some scientists even propose that Balor-Bondoc could have been an early flightless bird. Its ancestors could fly, but this dinosaur may have lost that ability due to isolation. Yes, the stocky dragon remains one of Hatsuk's most mysterious creatures, but not the most mysterious. Among the dinosaurs of Hatsuk, there is a species that to this day exists only in scientists' imagination. We are talking about Megalosaurus hungaricus, a hypothetical dinosaur that could have been one of the largest flightless creatures on the island. It's believed to have hunted small to medium-sized dinosaurs, but could also scavenge. The problem is the lack of information. All mentions of this dinosaur are based on fragmentary data that remains highly debated among paleontologists. But even if Megalosaurus hungaricus did exist, it likely lived in constant fear. Like all of Hatsuk's inhabitants, it would have avoided open spaces at all costs. Why? Because the greatest danger lurked in the sky. Just imagine, a giant shadow suddenly obscures the sun above your head. A gust of wind sweeps past. It's already too late to run. Yes, Hatsuk was a world ruled not by terrestrial predators, but by enormous flying reptiles. One of them was Eurysdarcho langenderfensis, the little giant of Hatsuk. Certainly, for a pterosaur, Darcho might not have been the largest, but by modern standards, it was quite an impressive creature. The wingspan of this bird was over 3 meters. It had an elongated neck, an extended beak-like snout, and a relatively compact, lightweight body. Its wings were perfectly designed for gliding, helping it conserve energy during long-distance flights. The unique structure of its limbs allowed Darcho to fold its wings and move on all fours, similar to some modern flying animals, like flying foxes. Darcho could spend hours patrolling forests and plains, scanning open spaces for small prey. But its standout feature was its adaptation to life on land. Yes, you've heard that right. This pterosaur spent a lot of time on the ground. Why? The answer is simple. It enjoyed hunting at a leisurely pace. Like other members of the Asdarchid family, Darcho likely had a lifestyle resembling that of modern herons or storks. That is, it relied heavily on its long beak, which allowed it to easily probe soft soil or snatch prey from marshy rivers and lakes. This meant that when aerial hunting didn't yield results, Darcho could always feast on lizards or insects. Convenient, right? Especially considering that this pterosaur had to survive alongside far more dangerous relatives. Compared to the next monster, Darcho might seem quite harmless. Do you notice how quiet it is around here? That's because all the animals have hidden, anticipating Albadraco tharmacensis. This was one of the large pterosaur species that inhabited Hatsuk. Its name translates to Dragon of Alba, referencing the Alba region in modern-day Romania, where its remains were discovered. But this dragon wasn't a mythical creature or a speculative hypothesis. It was very real. Albadraco's wingspan ranged from 5 to 7 meters. Its overall anatomy was something one of a kind. For instance, its beak was riddled with tiny holes, but they weren't meant for breathing. What are they for? Like its younger sibling, Darcho, Albadraco used its beak to forage in soil and water. Hundreds of tiny holes transformed its snout into an incredibly sensitive tool. It was almost like a biological metal detector, but for food. Today, we know that Albadraco held an intermediate position among the flying predators of the island. Yes, it could easily hunt dwarf dinosaurs like Balaur-Bondoc and Elopteryx, but even chase smaller Darcho individuals. But even Albadraco wouldn't dare face the true nightmare of Hatsuk, the monster that brought death to all living things here. Imagine a creature not just large, but gigantic. Its wingspan was up to 12 meters, comparable to a small Cessna airplane. It hovered over Hatsuk, scanning forests, plains, and shallow waters in search of prey. This is Hatsukopteryx, one of the largest flying animals in history, a true terror of the Cretaceous period. Wait a minute, what about the island rule? Could such a massive predator really grow in isolation? Scientists say yes. Hatsukopteryx is an excellent example of the opposite phenomenon, island gigantism, a situation where isolation and a lack of competition allow animals to grow to enormous sizes. Here on the island, Hatsukopteryx was the undisputed ruler. Everything else was its prey. Nothing hindered its growth. The size of Hatsukopteryx sets it apart even among its fellow pterosaurs. Its massive skull, measuring up to 2.5 meters in length, was even larger than that of the famous Quetzalcoatlus, whose skull was roughly 1 meter long. While Quetzalcoatlus was tall and slender, Hatsukopteryx was stockier and more robust. For a flying creature, it was astoundingly heavy, but this sheer mass allowed it to overpower even large prey. It could hunt from the air, diving onto its prey and literally stomping it into the ground. Or it could descend to the forest floor, find prey hiding in the underbush, and take it down. Its short, powerful neck resembled a telescopic crane, and its massive beak could kill animals with one precise strike. Thanks to its colossal size, Hatsukopteryx could easily swallow prey whole. It also didn't shy away from raiding nests, feasting on eggs and hatchlings as a casual breakfast. Hatsukopteryx was at the top of Hatsuk's food chain. So who exactly was on its terrifying menu?